Welcome to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership, where you'll hear insights and useful strategies, as well as lessons learned from other nonprofit leaders and valuable tips from a variety of experts. Here to help you with the challenges and opportunities you face day after day is your host and nonprofit leadership expert, Sarah Olivieri.
Hello, nonprofit leaders. Sarah Olivieri here, and I am with you here to talk about 4 reasons why your nonprofit should be taking more risks. That's right, more risks, folks. I have worked with nonprofits for many, many years. I have started nonprofits. I've been on the board. I've had all sorts of roles. And in all that time, over 2 decades, I have seen that overall in our industry, in the nonprofit space, we have a tendency to avoid risks, especially when it comes to investing money in taking a risk. Sometimes it disguises itself in this sneaky phrase of we need to be good stewards of our donors' money. Sometimes it sneaks in and we need to be careful about how much overhead we have. But often it's the first one, and we start worrying that if we do anything that fails, that we are not good stewards, and therefore we don't do anything. And so often doing nothing at all feels safe, but is actually a bigger risk than taking that risk that maybe we would have wanted to take. So, some of the symptoms that I see related to this is when we become risk averse, often we become kind of stagnant. We stop innovating at our organizations. And then ultimately, our programs and services, their they stop evolving. They become stagnant in how they evolve. And then as a result, they make less impact. So the cost here of risk aversion is ultimately less impact for our missions, for the people we're serving. So let's talk about 4 points that will hopefully help you think about how to transition to taking risks in meaningful ways that will increase your impact. So the first thing is you need to take risks in order to innovate. There's a phrase I love. It's called a safe to fail experiment. And this phrase kind of captures another great phrase from the book Great by Choice, which is fire bullets, then cannons. When you're taking a risk, to innovate, you don't need to go all in on a big solution right off the bat. You should test several small solutions that are a scale, the bullet scale, that is safe to fail. Another point that I want to make is so many organizations have been told that like nonprofits can't lobby, right? And there is a legal term and a legal definition around what you can and can't do there. But it often causes nonprofits to shy away from doing advocacy work around policies that would greatly, if they change the policy, it would greatly positively impact their missions. And they avoid this work out of a fear of risking their 501c3 status, which definitely look into the finer points yourself. But most nonprofits can advocate around policy with no trouble at all from a legal perspective. All right, let's also talk about taking risks as a skill to build, right? So thinking about how to take a calculated risk and how to minimize unwanted damage is a skill. So you may know I am a sailor, and a friend who's learning to sail asked me the other day, she said, "Well, what would you do if you were alone on the boat and bad weather suddenly came up?" And it was actually two friends having this conversation. And then they were asking me about it. And one of them said, well, I would want to just leave the sails up, do what's called hove to, which means you can stop and think about what to do. Take a moment to collect my thoughts. Now, on the one hand, that sounds like a really good idea. But on the other hand, I can tell you as an experienced sailor, I know and have practiced my plan in advance about what to do if bad weather comes up. So I eliminated needing to stop and gather my thoughts because I pre-planned and pre-staged it. And I shared, I actually I have a number of backup mechanisms that are already in place because I did the pre-thinking to eliminate the risk of being in a suddenly challenging situation. And I think my own experience is that the more you do risk mitigating things, the better you get at thinking of risk mitigating things. And the more you're good at mitigating unnecessary risks, the bigger risks you can take when it comes to trying something new with programming, trying something new with your funding, right? The more you can eliminate the little risks, the bigger risks becomes less of an overall risk. Okay. I want to talk to you also about how taking risks can help you gain unanticipated insights. So, the reason why it's a risk is we don't know exactly how it's going to turn out, or we can't guarantee how it's going to turn out. That's the beauty of experimenting, right? And when we take risks, often there are unanticipated consequences, right? We've probably heard of that. And when we take a well proportioned risk, a safe to fail risk, then those unanticipated consequences, we can anticipate that there will be unanticipated consequences, and then we can learn from them. And that is when we will gain our unanticipated insights, the things we didn't know that we didn't know and have now learned. So, those are my tips for you today. And I just want to reiterate that so many nonprofits take too few risks. And if you can be one of those that starts to take some safe to fail risks, some innovative risks, take some risk and do some advocacy policy work in your area. Take some risks and try a different funding stream. So often I see organizations don't want to shift to a more profitable funding model because their current funding model does, quote, work, meaning it does bring in money, but they can't do both. And switching from something that's bringing in money to switching something that probably will bring in more money feels like too big of a risk. But those who do it end up with more money. And absolutely take risks and run experiments with your programming. Always be seeking to make a bigger impact with the resources that you have. If you would like to be in the room with me and have a little hand holding or maybe a little nudge to take some of those risks, if you're a nonprofit leader, I encourage you to submit your application to the Thrive program, where I work with organizations one-on-one and in a small group setting in the Thrive program. And you can do that at pivotground.com/application. Until next time, I'll see you.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.